people are like, what? You're Syrian from Brooklyn? You married a guy from Gateshead? Like, it's just like, how did that happen?
Like, I was brought into a completely different environment. Like, I didn't know what a Syrian was.
In the Syrian community, you're kind of expected to be ready to get married at 18. Like, people get married right after high school.
And when you were 21, were your friends married?
All
were
married.
They
all married with kids. I really wasn't getting suggestions. And a guy came up and he fit the image. He wanted to marry me. And I felt like it was this or nothing. We were married for a year. So we got divorced. And now to be divorced from parents that were divorced, I was like, that's it. I'm done. Like, I'm never getting married. I'm just going to be alone for the rest of my life.
You're very brave.
I agree.
Thank you.
Things were very difficult from then until I met Shloimy, really, which was 7-8 years later.
2 weeks previous to that, I decided I was going to start dating or I was going to start looking. I thought about it. I said, why not?
Why not? Because someone else in your shoes might say, well, I'll tell you why not. And this isn't how I feel, but I know this is systemically what other people feel. She's a couple years older than you. She was previously married. She's Syrian. She's from Brooklyn. When you heard all those details, how did you feel about them?
I've been through my own struggles in life, and I've always realized that you can't judge people based on externals, based on the boxes that people might put them in and the things they may wear. You have to look deeper. I knew that for myself to meet the right one.
This week, we sat down with Pauline and Schloimy. Personally, this episode is a triple threat in so many ways. It challenges so many things that you've been taught to believe have to be fact in order for someone to proceed in the shidduch world, in the yeshiva world. This episode teaches us that man doesn't really have the power to call the shots, make the rules, and say who does or doesn't deserve to go out with someone. Let's see people as people. Let's look at their differences as strengths. Let's notice that their challenges really highlight the adversity that they've been through. And Shloimy and Pauline really highlight that it's time to start seeing people, not as their past, not as their experiences, not as simply something they've been through, but the beautiful person they became despite what they've been through. To remember that we need to let go of the rules. We need to remember that God has a plan. And we need to realize that the same God who put us through those challenges is the same God who's going to lead us to the best person who will appreciate us because of our challenges. This episode has been sponsored in the Zechus of a Shidduch for Nechama Bas Shifra Shendel. May you find your Zivug Bekarov. Welcome to Pauline and Schleimy's story of hope. Hi, I'm Tzipora Grodko, and this is the Stories of Hope podcast. I am so excited to have you here. Mr. and Mrs. Pauline and Shloimy. I'm from Muncie. I'm Ashkenaz. I've never had anyone named Pauline, so I just like saying your name as many times as I can because it's really, really fun for me. But we're so excited to have you here today. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
And we're going to start off with everyone sharing your age, where you're from, and a little bit about your background.
So I am 31. I am from Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in the Syrian community.
Shout out to the Syrians. This one's for you.
The Syrians. Was that it? Did I answer all?
Perfect. And you, Shloimy?
28 years old, I believe. Born in 1995. Sometimes it slips my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Gateshead, England. Ashkenaz. And that's it.
Okay, so you're 28 from Gateshead, England, Ashkenaz. Pauline is 31, Syrian, Brooklyn. Okay, so Pauline, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about what your dating experience was like.
So my dating experience was very difficult. In the Syrian community, in the Jewish world, it's very difficult dating. So just times that by 10 in the Syrian community.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, especially if you're not like a run-of-the-mill cookie cutter person. If there's any baggage of any sort, you're kind of labeled. And for me, I also, you're kind of expected to be ready to get married at 18, like people get married right after high school. So when I graduated, I was nowhere near ready to get married. I was figuring myself out. I grew up in a modern Orthodox home, so I got religious when I was younger, but like it was still, I was navigating my way through religion for a long time because I was, got really religious, and then I was like, wait, what am I doing? And then I was, back and forth. So after high school, I still wasn't like settled in my position. And I only really figured out where I wanted to be and figured myself out when I was 21, which is really late in the game, I guess.
Like, relatively to the community you were from.
Yeah. So I didn't, I kind of, I guess, had a reputation of being like confused and lost. And I also grew up my parents were divorced. So that was definitely a big flaw on my resume or on my name. And it was really hard to get dates.
And here you were making a decision to consciously not date yet because you were self-aware and were still growing.
Right.
And it was looked at as, oh no, maybe there's something wrong.
Right. Yeah. So I was figuring myself out very much after high school, and all my friends were getting married. So then when I finally was ready to get married and when I was ready to date, I was not getting any suggestions. Anyone that would be suggested was weird or not for me. The shadchans would barely pay attention to me,
because you were different than the community.
Because I was different. I was not run of the mill. I came from a, divorced family, even though my mother was remarried, but it didn't really matter. I had, this baggage.
Yep.
And the fact that like I only became ready at 21 also was like, why didn't she figure herself out before? Which is crazy because, high school, you're really young. You shouldn't have to figure yourself out from that young. But so.
And when you were 21, were your friends married?
All married. All married with kids.
All married with kids at 21.
Yeah. I don't think maybe I had like one or two. But not my age. Definitely not my age. All my friends that were in my grade and were married with one or two kids at least. At that age.
And that must have been hard for you.
Yeah, it was really hard because I felt like very lost, and like I had to kind of make work what was available, but it was really hard.
Yeah, that sounds really hard. That sounds really hard to be in a place where you're doing what's best for you and you're receiving judgment because it's different than what people are used to, and you're experiencing a sense of loneliness because people are moving forward, and yet what you want you're not getting from the community around you. And so you're in this place, you're 21, and Shloimy, you're 18 in 12th grade.
Probably
12th grade. So we don't do it by grades in England.
Okay.
But is that the end of high school?
Yeah.
In
grade?
America.
Yeah, so in Gateshead, I finished school about 15 or 16. Yeah, is that the same age? Was that 2 years before?
Right. And then,
but he's 18 basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nowhere like worlds apart.
Worlds apart. You're in Gateshead.
Gateshead.
I didn't even know what Gateshead was at this point. So
by 18, no, 18. Right, I was in London by that stage. Hogwarts.
Exactly.
You were in London.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I'd taken the Hogwarts Express.
Right.
I got to London.
Platform 9 3/4.
Yeah.
No, not thinking about dating.
No, I mean that wasn't even on the cards. No,
Right.
no.
Basically, I went to Arizona, and I was there really just to learn and grow. I found my place religiously, and I decided, this is what I want, and I wanted to grow and learn, and I finally figured out where I wanted to be religiously, and I was very in this kind of, I was at the height of my religious, I don't know what you want to call it, but I was like very into it. I wanted a kollel guy, and I wanted the whole thing, like when you come out of seminary, that whole picture of the guy that you want.
Yes.
And, like I said, like I really wasn't getting suggestions. I was not, finding anyone. And a guy came up and he fit the image, he fit the picture, and we dated. And, he also came from a divorced home. So I felt like I needed to take someone from a divorced family. I can't say no because of that. I have that too, like it wasn't like stuff like that. And he wanted to marry me. And I basically, in short, forced myself to like him to the point where I wanted to marry him because I felt like it was this or nothing. I felt like it was this or nothing. At least the guy, he fit the bill, like he fit the picture. Wasn't getting anyone that even remotely did. So it was like, this, I can work with this.
Yeah.
This is what is given to me and I'm going to make it work. And that's what I did. I got married. We were married for a year. And it was just wrong on every level. We were not right for each other whatsoever. We just, it was just not the right, it was just not right on every level. So we got divorced. I really did not want to get divorced because I did not want to have, I already had a difficult enough time the first time, and now to be divorced from parents that were divorced, plus this, plus all the baggage. I was like, that's it. I'm done. Like, I'm never getting married. I'm just going to be alone for the rest of my life. But ultimately, we had to get divorced in the end. And yes, we got divorced a year later.
It takes a lot of bravery to be able to be in that place and make a decision after doing the work that's needed to realize this isn't working.
Yeah.
And I just want to say you're very brave.
Thank you.
You're very brave.
I agree.
Thank you. And so after you got divorced, how old were you?
So I was around 23 when I got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And now I was basically back in the same position with more baggage
Right.
than before.
Obviously, when we say baggage, we mean like this, according to society's understanding. Yeah.
And so, things were very difficult. Things were very difficult from then until I met Shloimy, really, which was 7-8 years later. But for, my whole divorced life, it was very difficult. I had to now figure out where I was, like, again, and like where I wanted to be in, like, religiously and with friends. And, I was not in a good place at all. And I wasn't in a good place until really I met Shloimy. But I was not in a good place. There were ups and downs, but mainly downs, let's be honest. And, I like things with my job. Like, I didn't even know where, like, I was working in a million different jobs. Like, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was going from this college to that college, trying to like get my degree, like not knowing, like it was so lost. I was so confused. I had no direction. Being that like my family was more modern and I was the only religious one, I was kind of navigating that by myself.
Wow.
And so, I started to branch out of the Syrian world after I got divorced because I felt like there's nothing for me here.
Yeah.
And I needed a social life. I needed something. So I started to branch out. And at this point, it also like got really hard to stay religious because, I was hanging out with different crowds of people, more modern, boys and girls, and like not knowing what I should do. Like, I'm a religious girl. I don't hang out with boys, but then like, what am I supposed to do? There's nothing else available for me. And, I was stuck. I was really, really stuck. And, so as time went on, it was literally like every day, it was just getting through the day, getting through the, whatever it was, and just making it work with what I had available. And it was really difficult. Okay. Yeah. Am I forgetting things?
No, you're doing a
Wait,
fantastic.
what am I
You're doing a
missing?
fantastic
Am I
job.
going on too
No,
long?
you're doing a fantastic job.
Okay.
You are. So you're struggling socially. It sounds like you're struggling professionally. You're
Mhm.
struggling existentially. Rightfully so. I mean, you're going through your painful process, and I think a big challenge is it's in a very public way.
Mhm.
What's something that you wish you could have told your community or told people while you were going through that process?
I think I wanted people to give me a chance. I felt like no one gave me a chance, and I felt like no one respected me because I had, more of a different past than other people. And, guys also, I felt like they just wouldn't give me a chance because they, whatever they heard about me or whatever everyone had their judgments and their ideas of me. And yeah, it was a very horrible feeling all throughout my
So it would
those
be
years.
like suspend judgment
Yeah.
and see me. Almost like see me.
Yeah, like just give me a chance. Like I'm trying. I'm really I want to be good. I want to be I want to do good. Like I know I can. I have the potential. Like just give me a chance.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Wow. And what age are you at this point?
so at this point, so this was really from like 23 to it was all kind of the same up and down until 2021, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
or 2020. I'm not sure. I was in bad places up and down, like I said, a bunch throughout the years, but at a point I was in a really, really not great place. And I decided to do like real intensive therapy for myself and really work on myself.
Wow.
And it was only 2 weeks after that I met Shloimy.
Wow. We'll be right back to this episode, but first, a quick word from my friends at Growtha. If you're in the healthcare industry, then you understand how competitive this is. Any facet of the healthcare industry, it could be ABA, nursing homes, home aides, the list goes on. You know how difficult it is, but it doesn't have to be that hard. You see, I have a good friend who works at Google, and she's explained the whole systematic process to me. All you need is someone that can manage your traffic and get you to number one on Google. And I have the people for you. It's Growtha. Contact Growtha and they will help you get to the top. If anyone is looking for anything in that industry, they can open a magazine or hit up Google. You want your company to be the first one that gets there. And it's not complex. It's not complicated. And you don't have to spend a lot of time figuring it out. All you need to do is contact the best. Growtha is there for you. Find them at growtha.com or find their link in the show notes below this message to find out how you could take your business and upgrade your success by contacting the right people that can help you get there. It's really that simple. So anyone in the healthcare industry who wants to improve and obviously exceed your financial and personal expectations, it's not a secret. It's not a magic trick. You just need the right people to help you with the traffic, to get that 5-star reviews that you've been waiting for. Growtha, they are the people you want to contact. Growtha.com. Find them in the show notes below. And the best part, as always, mention Stories of Hope to receive 10% off of your next purchase. And obviously, let Josh know that you heard about him from us. He's our guy, and he's going to help you get exactly where you want to go. Stories of Hope for 10% off. Growtha, they're the people you want to reach. So Shloimy, now the spotlight's on you, and it's really unbelievable to hear how your growth and all the pain, which led to your choice to grow, led to this new life with Shloimy.
Yeah, we have to get into the story though. Are we
of course, that's where we're entering right now. So
the most important part.
Yes, the best part. I mean, they're all really wonderful. But this is the new part that everyone's still waiting to hear, how you're from your background. He's from his background. You had your process. And how? We're all about stories of hope. How is there hope from this story? So when was the first time you heard about Pauline, and how old were you at that time?
I think my sister might have mentioned her sometime that she had this American friend, but I didn't know any. I didn't really ask any questions. It might have just come up in passing. Oh, I had this girl. She was from America. She was in the apartment, but maybe I was
just in passing as a friend.
Yeah, no idea. I didn't know anything more than that. And then probably when I was 22, maybe even younger.
When?
When I heard your name mentioned for the first time, but I don't know. It's like you hear a million names in your life, and most of them you never hear ever again. Right. And that was, one of them. That might have been when I was 22, 23. Mm-hmm. I was living in Manchester at the time. And
what I understand is your sister became friends with Pauline, and I know there's a story with that, right?
Yeah. So when I was engaged the first time, and in the seminary at Tarsnava, I went on a Poland Holocaust trip with my seminary, and the seminary, they did the trip with this woman in England who kind of ran the trip. And on the trip, there was this girl who had just gotten divorced, and I was engaged at the time. So I was in my own world, like engaged, so excited, whatever. Didn't have anything to do with this girl, didn't talk to her, anything. But we were part of a group chat for like a year after. And after I got divorced, I, was looking really for people to connect with that had similar experiences to me. And I remembered that I had this, well, not friends because I wasn't friends with her yet, but that I knew this girl that was divorced. And I very randomly reached out to her and was like, hey, and we got to talking, and she was telling me about her experience. I was like, I got divorced, whatever. And we were just talking, and she was like, why don't you come to England to meet shidduchim here or whatever? And I was like, that's not a bad idea. I'm down for an English guy. I could do that.
Right. And I remember you told me that you secretly always wanted an English guy.
I did. Yeah.
Hashem's good at listening to secrets, and he's good at keeping them.
Yeah. And I remember my mother thought I was absolutely out of my mind. If you know the Syrian community, we don't do these things. People barely go to seminary, let alone to a person they met once across the country to date guys there. It's not a done thing.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I'm done with it. I'm ready to branch out. I'm ready to find something new. I'm going to go. And so she invited me to her house, and I stayed there for a week, and I met shidduchim there. I went on a few dates there, and I also met her friend, Chavi, who's Shloimy's sister, who at the time, Shloimy was not relevant, never mentioned Shloimy.
Right,
anything.
You weren't dating, you were in Israel?
At the time when you came to
it was not even in...
Probably in England still.
Yeah. I should even say,
it wasn't a thing.
Sorry, you weren't really a thought.
To me, I was.
And I stayed in touch with his sister, Chavi, throughout the years. I came back to England the next year because that friend had gotten remarried. So I came for her wedding, and Chavi still she never mentioned this brother. She would always try and set me up with other guys, but it was never, Shloimy was never relevant. And then until one day.
How old were you at this time?
I think I was 28 and Shloimy was 25. I randomly reached out to her out of the blue, and I was like, Chavi, I need a guy. Find me a guy. And she's like, oh my gosh. We were having a very nonchalant, joking, light conversation. She's like, the only guy I know is my brother and my brother-in-law. Not saying that I should date them, just saying those are the only actual single guys that I know.
Yeah.
And okay, her brother-in-law wasn't a thing. I was like, wait, you have a brother that's single? I was like, send me a picture. And so she sent me a picture. I was like, he's cute. I can work with this. And she's like, I was like, can you actually find out if he's interested? She's like, oh my gosh, I could text him and ask him. And
it was so foreign to her.
It was so not to make a shidduch. It was just a funny conversation. And she's like, I actually haven't spoken to him in a year because he moved to Israel. I'll see where he's at. So then she texted him, and I'll let you fill in here.
So she sent me a message, and it had been a long time since I spoke to her. I think she said, are you dating? it was very, very weird because 2 weeks previous to that, I had just decided that I was going to start dating. And
yeah, he never dated before this. So like I'm dating like all these years and he never even. Yeah.
It was such odd timing. It was very, very odd timing how it came up. I told her, you know what, let me think about it. I'll think about it over the weekend. I thought about it. I said, you know, why not? Let's have a conversation. I think she told me a little bit about you. A tiny little bit of background. I didn't do too much digging.
I didn't even ask for a picture.
I didn't even ask for a picture. No. And yeah, I think we had a chat.
So I want to challenge you a little bit. When you said, and I thought, why not? Because someone else in your shoes might say, well, I'll tell you why not. And this isn't how I feel, but I know this is systemically what other people feel. She's a couple years older than you. She was previously married. She's Syrian. She's from Brooklyn. When you heard all those details, how did you feel about them? Starting with age.
So if I'm honest, it never was a problem for me. And I've often been like that. I've been through my own struggles in life, and I've always realized that you can't judge people based on the externals, based on the boxes that people might put them in and the things they might wear. You have to look deeper. I knew that for myself, so I know that for other people as well. So it wasn't a barrier for me. And I know in the shidduch world, like, that's completely crazy. Like, everything's on paper, and if you don't tick this box, don't tick back that, then it's not even relevant. And that's very much part of the story that Pauline was saying, is that that's how you were your whole life. But because I'd been through my own challenges, that was disregarded for me. I want to meet the person. I want to see what's under there. And I think that,
even though I think it's important to note that he comes from Gateshead, which is a very, not similar to the Syrian community, but they're very judgmental with those things also. Like,
that's family, probably the most Haredi
so you would think
place.
That he would be. Yeah, you know, that's all he knows. But
right, and maybe I learned from that. It could be that I learned from that how shallow that can be. And I think what's crazy in my mind when I think about it is, if I would have considered all those things, and if I would have said to myself, you know what, she's 29, she's 3 years older than me, she's been divorced, and she's all this baggage, as you were talking about, I might have said no, and then what would have happened? And that's crazy to think about. And if I would have limited myself by that, I'm limiting myself for what we have now, which is crazy. And I think that people look at that and they have to have people who are fit this kind of mold which society has taught them, or that their family has taught them. And a lot of times you prevent yourself getting to the next places that you're meant to be. And that would have happened with us if I would have taken that too much in consideration. And I think it was because, it's because of my own challenges that I had been through, that I was able to see past that. And I'm able to see challenges as a positive and not necessarily a negative.
So challenges welcome insight and actually give clarity to what's important.
100%. Yeah,
wow.
100%. And yeah, you see with Pauline, like, for sure, like, you are a person who's been through, and she's told you a little bit of the story, but there's so much more in there. And there's every day was a challenge in some periods, and she's come through that, and we're much stronger people for it. And if people could see that, like, I think the whole, like, everything would change. If people would stop seeing things and just judging people from what society dictates from them to judge, then I think that it will be, things can really change. People you're limiting yourself. I think that's the bottom line. By taking things on face value, I think you're limiting yourself from what you can have. And people see that as a plus. And if it doesn't tick all the boxes, then you're gonna, let's not even look at it. I think personally, I think that's crazy. And
we both didn't do any really research before talking to each other, because we were just like, okay, let's just meet the person and see. And I didn't do it. I know nothing about you. And
that's who you're marrying.
And that's whatever, we figured it out ourselves.
You're not marrying the box. You're not marrying the externals. You're not marrying. You want to marry the person. You want to know who you're marrying, and that's who you need to get to know. And yeah, I mean,
I think research is great and everything. You do your research, but when it comes to things like, oh, what school did he go to, or is he full-time learning or is he half-day learning? Or what degree did he get? Or does he have tons of money? Or, what's his family like? Are his parents divorced? Not divorced? Like things like that don't define the person. So get to know the person and then decide for yourself. And that's what we did.
Yeah. And it sounds like these questions are supposed to reflect the person you're meeting, but very often they barely touch the surface because a lot of factors are part of a life that maybe the person didn't choose or are supposed to embody a certain character or drive or value system that maybe the person doesn't honestly really have. But because we've been taught that the following boxes reflect a certain person, maybe the person we finally end up meeting doesn't actually support those boxes.
Right.
And so it sounds like what you're saying is consider suspending judgment and understanding that who gets sent your way might be someone that actually is meant to stay in your life.
Yeah, don't limit yourself. I think that's what people end up doing.
We'll be right back after a quick message from Rosenbluth, an accredited college program. I personally got my bachelor's online, and it enabled me to be able to work full-time and have a very affordable college tuition. The Community Testing Center, CTC, or better known as Rosenbluth, is an accelerated bachelor's degree program where students can earn an accelerated bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited college. The degree is recognized and accepted by graduate school programs across the U.S. for all career paths. The bachelor's degree can be completed in, this is the best part, less than 1 year. And all courses are offered as credit by exams. Instead of a 4-month semester per course, students receive study material for each course. Students study for their exam, and once they take their exam and pass, they have earned 3 credits for their course. It's that easy. And now it gets even better because the cost of the entire program is a fraction of a 4-year degree. At an in-state college, students can work full-time, like I did, while earning credits, and each student receives a customized degree plan to meet their career goals. They have testing locations available nationwide, and students can pretty much do this anywhere, even if they live in Canada and Israel. In order to hear more information, reach Miriam at communitytestingcenter.com. You can also find more information on www.communitytestingcenter.com or contact them at 818-974-6733. These are the people you want to call. What was your family's reaction or one of your parents' reactions when they heard that you were going out with Pauline?
That's a great question. So obviously my sister set us up, so she knew about it. I didn't mention it to my parents for a little bit. Once I knew it was a little bit serious, then I mentioned it. And I'm one of 15. So I've come from a big family. And
Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin.
Gryffindor.
I hope it's okay.
Always.
I have to say the references.
He's like the biggest Harry Potter.
Gryffindor.
I love Harry
Potter.
Potter. Yeah, I do. But yeah, definitely Gryffindor for sure. So I come from a big family, and my mother, she doesn't really prescribe to these societal norms either. And I think that's where a lot of what I get comes from. She is very much looks at the individual, and she knows that people go through challenges and struggles. And I think that was passed on to me in a certain way. So when she heard about it, she trusted me that I know what I'm doing to a certain extent, and that she can trust me to do what I need to do. And, she met Pauline and she was super thrilled.
Yeah. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I love his parents and his family.
And what was your, I guess, like community's reaction when they heard that you were engaged to Shloimy?
So at that point, I didn't really identify myself as like so much part of the community anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not part of the community because like my family is, and I'm always going to be part of the community, but I wasn't like, I was definitely more out there. So, but even till today, like people are like, what? You're Syrian from Brooklyn? You married a guy from Gateshead? Like, it's just like, how did that happen? But yeah, it's, my family loves Shloimy, and he, they all like joke that it's not really a joke, but they all say like he is just the best thing that ever happened to me and our family. And,
And it's crazy because when you were engaged to this person that wasn't the right fit for you, the seeds were already being planted for you to meet Shloimy because you went on that program where you met that girl who introduced you to his sister.
Right.
And it's crazy to be able to see God after you went through the adversity, which I hope can inspire people to know there's a plan when they're still in the adversity.
100%.
It's an amazing thing. Generally, there's a concept in Judaism comes before the illness. So a lot of times before it actually happens, the solution has been planted beforehand. And it's very clear in your situation that
100%.
So funny listening
planted
to
the botanical
story.
gardens. That's right. What?
It's so funny. It's just sitting here and listening to Pauline tell the story. I'm getting like, I can feel very affected by it because we know it, so we don't sit down and talk about it all that, but just like the pain and the struggle of it and how clear it is that we saw God's hand all the way through for both of us is really like so apparent.
Right. And I'm sure while it was happening, you didn't necessarily see it in both your independent lives.
I mean, while it was happening, I had to get married and divorced. And then, but looking back, every single hardship that I went through, whether it was my divorce, whether it was a failed relationship, whether it was anything, I see how it contributed to us finding each other. Wow. And all the puzzle pieces fit. And it's a bracha that not everyone gets to see that. But I feel so lucky and grateful that I did get to see that, because I feel like I can really share that with people and show people it's possible. It happened to me. It can happen to you too.
Yeah. And I wonder, what are your opinions as someone that I know you said you weren't so connected to the Syrian community, but what's your opinion on people dating outside of their community, of considering someone that has a different background culturally?
Well, I mean, I'm all for it because but it's definitely, I think for me, I wanted so bad. Once I branched out into the Ashkenaz world, I was like, I love this. This is great. I want this. So I was psyched. I was I wanted to marry Ashkenaz. I was obsessed with Gateshead and the 15 kids. I was I was ready for it. But so for me, it wasn't hard. Pesach is the only hard thing, I would say. Because we can't eat anything. But it depends. It really depends how culturally connected you are, I guess, to your community. I don't think any of my siblings would have been able to marry someone that wasn't a Syrian, let's say, or, definitely not. But for me, I wanted that. So, I guess you have to just be honest with yourself and see what you want and what you can handle.
100%. And for you, Shloimy, I know you mentioned it earlier that, the details that are supposed to reflect so much more to you didn't really seem significant because you wanted to get to know the person. What would you tell someone that never considered going out with someone older than them because culturally it's just not something that was done? What would you tell someone like that?
I think you have to think logically about it. I mean, why would that be a limitation for you to date somebody? What's the logical reason behind that? I mean, it seems to me like society dictates that that's what you should and shouldn't do. That doesn't always necessarily make sense. Sometimes we have to branch out and change things and look at things differently. And you'll be very happily surprised sometimes, I'm sure. I don't think it's... I'll be honest with you, from where I sit, I can't see any logical reason why it should be like that. Why should someone turn down somebody just because they're older than them? Do you know why?
Because society, it's not the done thing, and people, want to, because on paper it matched, and it wasn't, it doesn't even make sense, it's not about what on paper matches. It's about the two people, if they're right for each other.
Right.
And, had we done all the research and looked into every single thing, and then we said, you know what, she had this or he had this, and I don't want to date her. But we just went for it, and we went out, and it worked. And it worked.
Yeah. And I think there's two pieces. One piece, I think what you said about age is that I think age is supposed to reflect a certain level of experience, knowledge, competence. But experience really affects age.
Right.
So if someone, you said you had your experiences. So as an intellectual, as someone with emotional intelligence, you were 25 when you married Pauline, right?
Yeah, when we met, yeah.
And when you met, you at 25 was probably significantly different than some of your peers at 25.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to highlight that age may or may not reflect the experience that someone has, and therefore may or may not be so significant. And you're right. 100%. I don't know why it's this, Declaration of Independence of those shall not marry, one that is
older than
them. Yeah. And you're each other's like bracha on each other's lives. It's crazy to think that maybe that wouldn't be if we followed the check boxes.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Right. I think, So, some of these things, they just need to go out. They need to be got rid of. I think that it's a crazy thing to limit yourself by age. Like it's,
Yeah. And I'm curious to hear what your first date was like, because I think it was over Zoom. You were in Israel.
Yeah.
You were in Brooklyn.
Chavi, his sister, gave him my number and he texted me, and then we FaceTimed, and it was I was eating a sandwich. It was very, casual, and I definitely I knew on the third date, I came home, I told my mom and my sister, it's like, I met the one. I met the one. They couldn't breathe. They're like, Pauline, I'm like, no. I know he's the one.
Wow.
And I don't know, I just felt it. And we just clicked, and it was over Zoom for a month. So until we actually met in person.
Wow.
But it was so good for us because I feel like we really got to build that strong foundation before actually meeting in person. And also another major hashgacha, Hashem really knew what he was doing. So I'm American and he's very English. So he's very prim and proper. I'm not. I remember the first time we went out to dinner, he was basically traumatized from me because I was sending my food back it wasn't hot enough, and he was like, oh, how could you send your food back? We don't do that in England. That is not a thing. He would, if we would have dated the regular way and we didn't get to know each other on Zoom, I don't think we would have gotten past the first date. You? I really don't think.
We would have.
I don't know. I don't think we would have. But Hashem knew what he was doing.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Know? Yeah.
And
wow. And in your process, every detail is clearly reflected in the steps needed to get you there. When did you know you wanted to marry Pauline?
That's a very good question. I remember the first date. I was living in Nachlaot, and we sat on a bench and you were eating that sandwich. Yeah. Do remember that. So I think once I came to the US, so it was during COVID, so we couldn't travel at the time. So I was going to come for Shavuos, and then the war broke out. And
there was also so many hashgacha things with that. You were supposed to come for Shavuos, and then we're like, oh my God, thank God you didn't come because this flight got canceled. And he only came a few weeks later. And it was everything was just perfectly planned and timing was perfect. If he would have came...
If I would have come earlier,
Shavuos, it would have been
a good idea.
Oh my gosh, it would have been horrible. He would have just jumped into my family Shavuos, and it just would not have been.
Pauline's I think I would have scared you, and Shloimy's no, I'm in love with you. You wouldn't have scared me.
I definitely would have scared him.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
I definitely would have. But yeah.
No, so I think once I came here, I visited for a week.
But then
and then I went back, and once I went back, then I think I knew. I was like, this is the right thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, beautiful.
It's amazing, but you I was brought into a completely different environment, the Syrian world.
You didn't know what a Syrian was.
I didn't know what a Syrian was,
Syrian?
and so coming into that kind of culture was a little bit of a shock, but they're most amazing people. They're really warm and welcoming people.
Yeah.
My in-laws are the best.
Aw. Wow. And what's a message that you would give over We'll start with you, Pauline, to someone that did not have it easy and really is struggling because they haven't met the right person. Actually, I'm going to interrupt myself. Was there a time in your process where you thought, I'm just never going to get married?
Yeah, the whole time. The whole time. But I knew what settling was, and I wasn't going to do it again because I settled the first time. I wasn't going to do it again. And, you know, I was like, I'm going to get what I want. And I had a list of exactly what I wanted. And, you know, it's crazy. But after we got engaged and after I was like, I actually wrote down a list. I was like into this manifesting, and on the list it said English guy, big family,
Wow.
15 kids, religious family, Gateshead. You don't get any more religious than that. Younger than me. Like everything was like check. And I was like, I really just felt like Hashem was just like, it's possible. Like you can. And I think that, sorry.
No, that was perfect. And so what would your parting message be to someone that feels like it's not going to happen to them?
Yeah. So my message would definitely be like, as cliche as it sounds, but just really don't give up and don't lose hope. And your life can seem like horrible and you could feel like you're never going to get out of it and you're never going to have the salvation. But Hashem can literally send that salvation in 1 second. And, you know, you could be struggling for years and years. For me, I was 28 when I met Shloimy, and I struggled for every single one of those 28 years. Like I always say, like my life completely changed after I met Shloimy and after I got married. My life now is so different than it was back then. Not just the divorced years, even the years before. And you know, my family says it too, that like I'm a different person. It's my life is, it's just like, thank you, Hashem. But that, you know, Hashem could literally do anything, and you really have to work on yourself and do the hishtadlus. Like people think like hishtadlus, okay, stalking shidduchim or going to every singles event or getting on every dating app, going on all the dates you need. Like that's not, I mean, you got to do that, but the main thing is working on yourself. And I know I see that so clear because for me, only once like I mentioned, I got myself into really intensive therapy, and only 2 weeks later I met Shloimy. Wow. And it was like so obvious, like Hashem was like, you did it. You worked on yourself. You are in a good place now. You're ready. I'm going to send it to you. Wow. And that's what happened.
Wow. I mean, as someone that my background's in psychotherapy, I'm a social worker, I'm a coach. We can't get through any of this alone, and having support in every aspect is extremely important. And I want to know, back then, what do you think would have given you hope? Because you shared, don't give up and have hope. Let's say someone hears that and they think, well, yeah, okay, but how? Like, what do you think would have given you hope?
So I remember like whenever I would hear these kind of stories, I would get hope, but I would always say, okay, but they don't have what I have. Like they don't have the baggage I have. They don't have my experiences. Like they're like, mine's just not possible. And I want to just say that, like, you know, I really thought I was like obviously I wasn't, but I thought I was because, you know, when you're in that place, you feel like you're in the worst place. I thought I was the epitome of like, this is the hardest situation. Like, I'm never going to get married. Like, if this could happen to me, this could happen to anyone. And I really do believe that because I feel like I, you know, did really have it hard. I was not a type of person that like things would come easy to ever at any point in my life, ever. And, you know, Hashem decided like, you know, you did the work. You struggled enough. I'm going to send it for you. And he did. And, you know,
wow.
And I think that it really could happen for anyone. I really think that, you know, as like low as you feel or as in whatever bad position you're in, you really just need to work on yourself. Like that is the most important thing because you can't control other people. You can only control yourself and your life. And so whether that's going to therapy once a week or, you know, doing more intensive work like I did, like you need to do it. And you need to be honest with yourself and do it and get through it. And, you know, then the rest is in Hashem's hands.
Right. Then And once you change yourself, by default, it changes your life.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
100%.
Thank you. And what about you, Shloimy? What's a message you'd give over to someone that is struggling to find the right person or is about to start dating and is like,
Great question. I think that, and I think we've mentioned it, that you can look at challenges as a bonus and as a plus, and it's not something which, puts a person in a lower category or makes them any worse. A lot of times it makes them better. And, if you can focus on that and try to meet the real person and don't discount things just because of a piece of paper, I think you're opening yourself up to much more opportunity and potential to meet the right one.
Everybody listen to it, read it, eat it for breakfast. That was so well said. And thank you both for coming in today to share your story of hope.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching another episode of Stories of Hope. This is pretty crazy, but in the last 2 weeks, our average reach of videos has been from 46,000 to 77,000, and that's with thanks to you. But here's something a little strange. 90% of you are not subscribed. You're wondering, why is it important? If you click the button and hit subscribe, you will get a personal notification when our episode comes out. It's free, it's easy, there's no scam. We just want to get our content to you as easy, as efficient, and quick as possible. So click the subscribe button so that you can get the best in the best way that best serves you. Now, another topic. If you or someone you know has a story of hope and wants to be a part of this revolutionary change that we are working so hard to do, please contact us at soh@meaningfulminute.org. This is not something that can happen alone. So please don't underestimate the impact you can have. And I want to tell you a little secret. If you're concerned and scared to step forward, or if you think, well, this isn't something I'm comfortable doing, listen, I'm not comfortable doing it either. Change doesn't happen through comfort. Change really happens by doing something that no one's done and by being courageous and brave. So I ask you, please be brave. Please step forward. We've received countless emails of people asking for specific stories from specific demographics. And I've reached out to people in those demographics, and the answer is, I'm so grateful you're doing this. I needed something like this, but I'm too scared to come forward. So if you're listening and you're one of those people, we can simply have a conversation. It's not a commitment. And I appreciate anyone considering to come forward. So reach out with your story at soh@meaningfulminute.org. I will personally be corresponding with you, connecting with you to see if you can help us with this mission for change. And now, for all those that have businesses who want to help support this mission and receive insane exposure, as I've previously said, we've had hundreds of thousands of viewers, and this is just in the beginning. We're only at episode 5. So imagine how much farther that reach can go. Reach out so that we can help you and you can help us by becoming our new friend and sponsor of Stories of Hope. Additionally, a lot of people have messaged me, epic episode, but what's with the plastic cups? Now this one's for you. If you want your company to be featured on our cups, reach out to us at soh@meaningfulminute.org, and maybe we'll be able to work together to spread your name, increase your fame, and obviously support your business. Contact us now at soh@meaningfulminute.org. I'm so grateful and can't wait to hear from you.